John Thornton here, allproblogger.com. Just responding to a couple of the comments and questions that I begin here on the site. A lot of people want to know about the Bengals linebacker situation and what's going to happen. It looks like they've signed Manny Lawson, the outside linebacker from the San Francisco 49ers. At least they've agreed to him. I know he probably has to take a physical before things becomes official. You never know what happens there. But just saying that if he signs, I think he comes in as a Sam linebacker, which is a strong linebacker. You'll have Ray Maluga at the middle linebacker, the Mike linebacker, and Keith Rivers will play the will, which is the weak backer. The Sam backer, as far as Manny Lawson's case, those guys usually play where the tight end is, and even in under fronts, those guys are up on the line of scrimmage, right, very close to the tight end. So you want those guys to be a little taller, longer arms, guys that can extend in the run game and lock out the tight end and make tackles. Those guys are asked to blitz a lot, and you have to at least run down the field a little bit with the linebacker, with the tight ends. To pass them off to the safeties in the passing game. So those guys, you want them to be a little bit athletic, to have some pass rush sense about them because they do blitz. I think Manny Lawson fits that. I haven't seen him play a lot. I mean, I watched some 49ers games over the years. I know he hasn't really had a huge factor out there being a first-round pick, but he's a guy that the Bengals have always liked. I know back in 2006, we would have switched to a 3-4 defense. At least that's what some coaches told me back then. Even before the draft, I heard some rumors that we were switching to a 3-4. They said, hey, if we get this Manny Lawson kid, I think we'll switch to a 3-4 because the year before they drafted David Pollock. David wasn't a full-time defensive end. He couldn't hold up playing with his hand on the ground, so he would have to be a stand-up outside linebacker. You put Manny Lawson on the other side. I think Sam Adams we had that year would have been the nose. I would have moved out to defensive end, and I think Brian Robinson would have been a defensive end, or Justin Smith. I'm not sure how the whole thing would have shook out, but the team was definitely looking to go to a 3-4 defense if they had Manny. So now they got him. They didn't get him then. They drafted Jonathan Joseph. Jonathan's gone down, and Manny's here. So it's really funny how things work out. But, the middle backer position will be manned by Ray Maluga, and then the weak backer would be Keith Rivers. Now, people wonder why Brandon Johnson hasn't signed back. Brandon is, to me, he's an equal player to Keith Rivers. He's more productive than Keith Rivers. He's not the athlete of Keith, but when he gets into the game, he makes more plays than Keith Rivers. So that's probably more the reason why he's not here, because Keith Rivers is going to be here. He's the 9th pick in the draft in '08. The Bengals don't give up on their draft picks like some other teams do. So I don't know if they want a guy that's making a lot of money playing at that position. And Brandon wants a decent salary because he's proved to be a good player. So I think there's just a little battle there. Brandon's not getting to play out in the open market that he thought he would. He's either going to wait and see if there's some injuries, or like I said before, teams have to see what their young guys can do before they go out and sign veterans. They haven't seen these guys practice because there were no OTAs, and they're going to wait before they start to bring veterans in and sit their rookies down. So Brandon's going to either have to wait or accept a one-year deal and go to a team. But I think the Bengals would be his best possibility because he knows this defense. Come back in, play for another year, hopefully get some playing time, and then go back out in the market next year. It's hard for a player to do because he wants to get paid now. You never know what can happen with injuries, but I think in this part of the free agency market, that may be his best option. But, he's not only fighting Keith on the field, but he's fighting the front office as well because, like I said, Keith's the 9th pick in the draft, and he's going to get every opportunity to prove that because they paid him a bunch of money, and they're going to want him to play. Ray Maluga, people are asking, okay, can Dhani Jones come back and be a mentor, be a strong backup? That's easier said than done. Dhani has some clout in the locker room and on the team, and at this point, he's a better middle linebacker than Ray Maluga, especially NFL-wise, because Dhani's done it for the past few years. And he even though Dhani wasn't a great player, I think he's a good player, and he's a great leader. He's a great communicator. He can get the calls from the sideline, make it under pressure, move guys around, and still he's able to do his job. I think that's the thing that Ray Maluga is going to have to do in the preseason to show the coaches that he's able to man the middle linebacker job. It's not just about playing; it's about him being the leader of the defense, making the calls to the defense. While the offensive guys are coming out of the huddle, things are getting kind of rushed and people are panicking out there. The middle linebacker has to calm everybody down. So that's going to be Ray's biggest job. I'm pretty sure he can handle it physically. Even back in 2005, Odell Thurman, he never called the plays. He couldn't handle it. I mean, there were some games where Odell would get the call from Chuck Bresnahan, and then he would have trouble getting it out to us, and we would line up not knowing what the call was, or the offensive guys would be ready to run a play in the game, and we're still looking at Odell like, give us the call. It's just difficult for young guys to really process that information and spit it back out and still do their job. So back then, they just let Brian Simmons, who was outside backer, they let him run the huddle and just had Odell just play and just not think about anything. So I wonder what they're going to do with Ray, but he's going to be the guy. And if you bring in Dhani Jones and you see a Ray Maluga struggling, you're going to be tempted to put Dhani back in to get everything right. But I think they want to go through some growing pains, or at least through the preseason, to allow Ray to be the middle backer. So I don't think Dhani's out of the question, but I just don't see it happening right now unless Dhani just agrees to do it and agrees to come in and change his whole personality. So that's the Bengals linebacker position as I see it right now. I still think that there will be a few moves there, maybe Brandon, maybe Dhani, or maybe some other guys, because remember, the backup guys are going to have to play special teams. Dhani's older. He's not the special teams player that he once was. I mean, that's difficult to do at an older age. Brandon can still play special teams. I think he was a special teams captain last year. So the backups have to be able to play special teams. And it's just difficult when you got guys that are used to being starters. Now they have to go into that different role. So we'll see if they bring in different guys or they'll bring in guys that know the system cold like Dhani and Brandon.